Hey guys, what is going on? It's Alexander Williamson and welcome to FISHTOry. So today is a nice and easygoing short episode in that really you probably know this information, but I just wanted to make it official. So in the Pacific Northwest, we have the coldest year for June that we've had on record. Not only that, also May and April as well. Unfortunately, we've had more rain than normal with several record days. And as I stand out here tonight, it looks like it's not showing up on the camera, but I can see my breath. So it is, it's cold. It's about 48 degrees tonight, and we're in the middle of June. So what gives, you know? Yet the center of the country has, as you guys probably know out there, unseasonably hot weather. I mean, we're seeing 100 degrees out in Kansas, South Dakota, down into the deep south, obviously. So this is kind of a wacky year for weather, and we're expecting one of the most active hurricane seasons also this year. So I just wanted to kind of give a friendly reminder that, keep posted for your local weather information channels, but also check out the universities in your area, and if they have a meteorology department that doesn't just go out and reveal your backstage. All right, so if they have a meteorology department, go ahead and check them out and see if maybe you can get like a month-long forecast if any of this is going to adversely impact your hobby. So if you're doing tubs outside or you have ponds, if they're in the ground, the insulation will help keep them stable, but they're only going to be stable to whatever the ambient average of high and low temperatures is, and that's if they're in the shade generally, or under 6 hours of sun. Now, if they're in the 6 to 12 hours of sun zone, then they can heat up quite a bit warmer than that. So that's just keep that in mind, and you can mitigate heat if it's too hot with aeration and evaporation. So basically keep that water moving, keep it flowing, and that's the best way to fight that heat. Last year, we had a day that was 115 in Seattle, and that's very hot for Seattle. That's pretty hot for anywhere, honestly. And it killed a lot of my fish outside. It killed pretty much all my baby medocas. The adults did live, though, which I found interesting. Usually it's the reverse. But could have just been the tub they were in also. Anyways, I just wanted to tell you guys that there's some great, resources out there. They're going to be linked in the description of this video, but a couple just to shout out for the Aquatic Morning Show and other folks watching this or listening to this. That would be NOAA is probably your best source, which is the National Oceanographic Institute, essentially. I don't remember the last part, atmospheric something or other, but it's the weather funded by the government, and it's keeping track of it for airlines, for shipping, for whatever use, for crops and so forth. Another thing you could take a look at is Farmer's Almanac. Not always accurate, but maybe worth a shot if you have faith in that institution. I would take a little more heed in scientific modeling. Usually there's something called the European model and something called the American model, and then there's usually an amalgamated model, which is a combination of both of those and kind of a cone of averages. Just like they do for hurricanes, they do this for weather, temperature, and seasonal changes, and a lot of times your local university will have done more specific work with that. So for Seattle, they're saying that it's cold now, but we should get normal weather coming in by early July. It'll start off cooler, but then they're expecting a late summer. Don't know if that will truly unfold as said. You know how accurate the weathermen are on TV. Well, this is even a little farther out than they go, and usually they're working off sources that are from these same things. So it can be hit or miss. Depending on where you live, it can be very predictable. Here, along an ocean as well, we're near the coast, plus we've got an inlet from the coast, and then mountains on either side of us that are up to 10,000 feet tall. So we've got kind of a unique situation with the Arctic wind coming down from Canada through a like perfect chute of mountain ranges. Or we can also get hot winds coming out of the center of the country. And I know every spot is going to have something different like that. But it's just a friendly reminder. Plan out when you're going to put your tubs out. Mine are going to be delayed. I usually have my fish out by now. And also, check out the info on how much your fish can tolerate. So if they're, mountain minnows and paradise fish, anything native, rainbow shiners, things like that, they can easily all be out right now. The paradise fish are kind of on the edge here for Seattle. But really, you're going to want at least over 60 degrees at night for anything tropical to even start thinking about it being possible. So just a friendly reminder, and a reminder that the weather is a weird one this year. I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe from the weather and everything else. Talk to you next time. Bye. Hey guys, it's Alexander Williamson, and I hope you're having a good week, a good start to the week. I hope you're doing well also. So, this is FISHTORY, episode 95. Thank you so very much for allowing 95 episodes to continue. I'm not going to lie, they'd probably continue anyways, because I'm a big old dork. But thank you for being here and sharing in the experience. So, today we have an interesting study. It's done by a gentleman in Europe who started it and then was worked on by many, many scientists. Lots of great women and lots of great men in the field. And wild guppies. So, are they cannibals? Do they eat their babies like pet guppies do? And that was the question that they wanted to answer. So it turns out that wild guppies hardly ever eat their fry, but in captivity, it's extremely common. You probably know this. So mosquito fish and guppies, though known to be cannibalistic in captivity, are extremely likely to be cannibalistic in wild settings. And the rare instances of cannibalism in these fish are likely due to strong competition for food resources. And that's pretty much it. The findings from a new study led by a US and UK research team going on the hunch of a German research team, I know that's a lot, have implications not only for fish, but fish enthusiasts and hobbyists. So scientists who use mosquito fish as models for ecology and evolutionary studies can also learn a lot from this, and they're used for control of mosquitoes. Obviously they're called mosquito fish, so they're bred around the world, and this is important info for how to breed them properly. So cannibalism was most frequent in populations with very high levels of food competition. So that is populations lacking major predators, where the population density of the fish that were surveyed in the study was especially high. So the experiment to test causes of cannibalism were done by teams that studied 720 fish by creating a mesocosm, which is a large 6-foot diameter outdoor container that they needed a scientific word for, I guess, other than pond. But the fish's natural environment was then looked at as, in reference to it as a control. So the population density, predator risk, resource availability, food, size, weight, length, all that was measured. And the fish were observed for a week to determine what might influence cannibalistic behaviors. The results of the experiments also pointed out population density was the main issue, followed by resource availability, and those were the key drivers. So resource competition seems to be the main predictor of cannibalism, according to Professor Langerhans. So we also saw that a lack of predation has an indirect effect on cannibalism. So a release from predation allows the population density to skyrocket, which decreases resources. So this same driving factor may be responsible for cases of cannibalism across the animal kingdom. You have the luxury to be a cannibal in your species when there's a lot of you. The team was also able to rule out some other potential causes for cannibalism, such as cannibalism doesn't happen when there are bigger guppies more frequently encountering smaller young fish. It also doesn't just happen because there are big predatory fish in the area, if they're not eating the guppies. So just the presence of them in your tank, also, it would follow, doesn't mean that they're going to be predatory. It's really that there's just so many baby guppies that they become a resource. They become an idea for the other guppies. Let's get rid of the weakest ones. Let's eat them. The slowest ones. Let's eat them. So females who are larger, they cannibalized way more than males in all situations, both in the pond that was overcrowded with the 720 guppies and also in the wild. It's probably because they need more energy. They need more protein. They need more fat. And live bears rely on that for the size of their babies, which then it can predict their outcomes. So if the mom eats a lot, the fry are born bigger, and then the fry have a better chance of surviving and also being fully formed and not having defects such as, bent spines and things like that. So work has implications not only for hobbyists and those trying to repopulate endangered species, but also for researchers who are in the evolutionary biology field, and also the people who use the mosquito fish as a way to keep down mosquitoes. Because also it's reported time and time again that those mosquito fish, the gambusia, they really do eat a lot of their babies when they're being bred in pens. So now they're able to kind of figure out that, you just need to keep feeding them a ton and have good filtration if you're going to keep that dense population. You don't want to have a super dense population if you want all your fry to survive without moving water, without places to hide, and without lots and lots of food for them to eat. Because as soon as they run out of food, those babies start looking tempting. Also, as soon as there's a ton of guppies, competition gets more intense, and so it kind of makes sense why they eat their babies, unfortunately. But I just thought that was pretty interesting and had some impact on our hobby. So there's a whole big long article about it with about 15 different scientists working on it. But it was in the Journal of Ecology and Evolution just this week. And I've got that linked below if you're curious about that source, want to read more about it. They do go into quite a bit of detail because they overlooked work that studied over 50,000 guppies in total, with different control groups that people had done different types of studies for, when they'd kept the information of how many fry were surviving due to predation by the adults and so forth. That's a common thing to keep track of. So it's a pretty big study, and this is kind of a study of studies that was done in the UK because the German professor noticed it in the wild, less common, and it's found that it was only 0.03% of fish that actually ate their babies in the wild, whereas in captivity it could be as high as 50%. So yeah, kind of shows us what we need to do in captivity not to have all of our baby guppies eaten. And at the same time, if you have too many guppies, just don't feed them as much, I guess. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye. Back to you, Jess. Hey guys, what's going on? This is kind of a bummer, but it's episode 96 of FISHTORY on the secret history living in your aquarium, which is also on the Aquatic Morning Show, and I hope all you guys are doing well everywhere. So, the Amazon is in danger of overfishing. That's probably not a surprise to a ton of people, but researchers at the University of Cornell, or Cornell University, have been examining decades of reports from fisheries and also from the landing places where they sell fish in markets, where the fishermen come in. People keep tally there, and they have been doing that since the 1960s just to kind of keep track of things and to note what people are eating and which fish are most common and so forth. So new research was published in the proceedings by the Royal Society, and they said, quote, "We are seeing a decline in large-bodied species." Pretty simple quote, pretty bummer. So author Sebastian Halpern of Cornell, the president of postdoctorate fellows, said that they kind of expected to see this, but they weren't sure that it would bear out as clearly as it did. But large-bodied species that are food fish are more vulnerable. They develop slower. They need more energy to get to their full potential as a giant fish, monster-sized fish, arapaima and things. And as they decline, we also see them being replaced by smaller fish readily, which then eat their younger fish, when younger versions of those species, so the fry of those species, which then makes overexploitation even worse, because a lot of times miniature-sized fish compared to a 10-foot-long arapaima is a foot-long fish that is still food fish. So then when those get harvested, it really becomes over-harvested. And now they're seeing that happen where it can totally collapse parts of the river where there's no big fish. And then the biodiversity drops, things like mining and other debris that comes into the river from logging and cattle, pesticides and effluents from sewage. It all can lead to low O2, algae blooms, ammonia, all sorts of things like that then make all those problems just that much worse. So effectively, they think, though, overfishing is withdrawing from the natural sustainability of the local ecology, and it has greatly reduced the diversity of species, because many species depend on that web. It may be that the fry of a certain species don't usually make it, and they're a food source for a fish that's much smaller than, say, the arapaima. Maybe that they have thousands and thousands of babies, these larger fish, and that they're a key food source for other fish. Then those fish are gone, and so forth and so on, the dominoes fall. So the Amazon River is one of the most productive and diverse freshwater ecosystems on the planet. So it was thought for a long time that it would be pretty hard to overfish, especially by the population densities that are there. But that statement has gotten less and less true. The population has gotten more and more dense. People are moving deeper and deeper into the Amazon and up the Amazon River. And, they actually have one of the highest rates of fish consumption in the Amazon of anywhere in the world, like rivaling Japan, with 110 to 150 pounds per person annually of fish. That's fish flesh, not the dead, discarded parts of fish. So the percentage of freshwater fish stocks with biologically sustainable levels was 90% in 1990. Now, according to a 2020 Food and Agricultural Organization by the United Nations report, sustainability had dropped to a mere 65% by 2017. So from 90 to 65 in 20 years. So the Amazon is now trying to better, the government around the Amazon is now trying to better monitor and at least get info on this. However, the current government under Bolsonaro is also very pro fishing, pro mining, pro using any resources the country has. But now that they're seeing total collapses in parts of the river, the local governments are getting involved and working with some of the universities from around the world, such as Cornell, to figure out which fish are sustainable, which ones should be harvested, and what size of which species need to be thrown back so that they can spawn and produce more fish. What's kind of that key size, just like we do here in the United States with sturgeon or pike, or we do it with many fish. So, cod, which I love fishing for, we do that. But it's just a kind of a bummer, but it's something to think about and something to be aware of, because the ornamental fish are also just food fish too for many people. So if you're a fan of monster fish or even small fish, this really does have a lot of implications when 65% of the fish runs in the Amazon right now are not sustainable for what humans are doing to them. That means they're going to go extinct at this rate because only more people are coming. So that's a bit of some sad news, but hopefully people will pull it together, see the value in the resource they have, and monitor and control it as well as possible. Another big part of this is too that there's the government quotas, there's the amounts, there's permits they give out. There's also so many people who are impoverished, and this is their only food source. So the reason that amount of food consumption is so high, of fish consumption is so high, is because so many people are impoverished living along the river. And, they don't go to the market to buy food very often. Maybe they buy rice or, a few key starches or other spices and things, but their food does come from the forest, be it fruits, vegetables, or fish. So helping to improve the situation of that should also help to improve the situation of the fish. So aquaculture is a big industry that we hope to see coming to light with people like Dr. Anthony and the Ornamental Fish Project. He's also teaching how to do aquaculture, which will teach them how to raise food fish as well as the fish that they have there. And then hopefully that will relieve some of this pressure and also bring some more money into those impoverished communities. It's been Alex Williamson with Secret History, living in your aquarium, doing FISHTORY, and I'll hand it back over to you, Jess, and the morning show crew. Hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you next time. Bye. What's going on, everybody? It's Alexander Williamson here with FISHTORY, and today it's getting colder. You might have noticed that as I've filmed these, I've added a layer of sweatshirts and another hoodie, which I'm going to keep up because it is 45 degrees out and June. Anyways, I hope you're all doing well, and I hope that drives home the point of the last episode. But we're going to talk about something completely different today, and I hope you're all doing well. So, what did the human health care crisis of 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, what did it do to the economy of our hobby? So, let's talk about this. The predictions at first were dire for our hobby. It was that the businesses would essentially close or run out of supplies. And interestingly enough, for the first year with lockdowns around the world, they were considered an essential business in the United States and in many other countries. A lot of times, fish and other pet supplies were combined in stores. And because of this, it allowed only fish stores to stay open under the same guidelines. And in this case, what happened is we saw a lot of innovation in the types of containers and tanks and nano setups being sold, because a lot of people bought fish from being stuck at home and wanting something to do. So we saw this huge increase in sales at the beginning of lockdown. At the very beginning, we saw a little bit of hoarding activity and some supply issues, but it basically equaled out to the same as normal. Online, however, the story is very different. They saw a 300% increase in sales between aquacultural goods of ornamental nature, so that's like fish farms in Florida, and wholesalers online that sell goods, just to the number of fish being handled in the mail and by courier services like FedEx or UPS. So all these people started to jump into the hobby. If plants are any indication, because you don't know if it's just people buying fish for their aquarium and buying another bigger aquarium, or if it's a bunch of new people buying a few fish. But if plants are any indication and tank sales are any indication, it seems that the hobby has increased about threefold during the lockdown. Now, it seems to also have peaked about at the end of 2021. So we had about 18 months or so of good sales going on. Now, I know it may not have felt like it. A lot of people were nervous. A lot of people were wondering what was going to happen. But especially if you count the online sector and small businesses, new businesses opening, a lot of businesses were opened by home keepers, and a lot of people bred fish. And because of supply chain issues, none of them were big enough to slow down the hobby as a whole, but it actually brought more domestic need into the hobby. And so things like CPDs, Scarlet Batis, even Tetras, things like these that are normally $3 to $4 before this, jumped up to the $10 to $12 range in a lot of urban areas. More like $6 to $8 range in areas where it's only sourced through, PetSmart and Petco. But the smaller retails tend to be paying more because they're also getting better quality as well. Now, the big impact that's happening still from this whole thing is there are some places that have never really had it ravage their country, China, and now they are having that regardless of what they try to do. And it has shut down ports, it has slowed the economy, shut down factories, and we still have a backlog from the shutdown that was in April and May. So we also have new shutdowns too. But we are seeing things like glass in short supply. We know that wheat and soy both will be in short supply this year, so much so that it's almost unconscionable to think about that being a problem for the fish hobby, considering there are probably going to be close to 5 to 10 million people starving in Africa due to a lack of Ukraine's wheat. They are a ginormous wheat producer, and it's simply either not getting grown or not getting harvested and transported out, which has caused prices to rise and then caused other countries with more money to buy up the wheat. And the less fortunate countries or less established countries on the market can't afford it. Well, the same thing happens with aquarium goods. So Europe and the US have seen a giant increase. The rest of the world, if you live somewhere else, you may have noticed that the pickings are a little more slim. So I am looking at this from a Eurocentric or American, Canadian kind of view. Japanese also included in there. So in the long run, it'll be interesting to see because houseplants, like I said, 900% increase in houseplants from 2019 to 2022, the start of 2022. Pretty big increase. Now, granted, it's probably some people getting really into houseplants, and you could knock off, I don't know, maybe it's a 500%, or maybe it's even 300%. But it seems in the fish hobby that we saw somewhere between a 200 and 300%, or a 2 to 3 times growth in the amount of people at least keeping, a betta or a fish tank, as well as those people who kept big fish rooms, expanding their fish rooms and starting breeding operations and things like that. So there's a report out by the Florida Aquaculture and Agriculture Council. There's also some anecdotal reports, and I've talked to a lot of shop owners and things like that. And so while the markets have changed, they seem to be pretty steady, and we seem to have come out with a net gain. But there is fear that there will be a big drop-off of people just kind of tired of the hobby, tired of being indoors, or just kind of hitting that point where they have too many tanks and can't juggle them all. When the MTS hits, it hits hard. So I hope you guys are doing well and not thinking of getting out of the hobby and still enjoying it. I sure am enjoying it, that is. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later. It's been Alex with FISHTORY. See you next time. Bye, guys.